January 20th, 2026. As the world watches, Myanmar stands at a critical crossroads, its skies echoing with the thunder of warplanes and the hum of drones. The civil war, now in its 5th year, has entered a new and dangerous phase, one where air power is shaping the very future of the nation. The skies over Myanmar are now the military junta's last desperate stronghold. With much of the country slipping from their grasp, the generals have turned to the air, hoping to maintain control from above, even as they lose it on the ground. Since the 2021 coup, the junta has lost ground, soldiers, and public support, turning to air power as its main weapon. Once feared for their dominance on land, the military now finds itself increasingly isolated, forced to rely on the threat from above to project power and instill fear. In just 5 months of 2025, the Air Force launched over 1,100 airstrikes, an explosive rise from previous years. These attacks have devastated villages, destroyed infrastructure, and displaced thousands, leaving a trail of destruction that has shocked the international community. Unable to win on the ground, the military now uses jets and helicopters to punish communities and disrupt resistance governance. Airstrikes target not just fighters, but also schools, hospitals, and markets, anywhere the resistance might find shelter or support. But this air campaign is fueled by desperation. Economic crisis and dwindling jet fuel supplies threaten to ground the fleet. Sanctions and a collapsing economy have made it harder for the junta to maintain its aircraft, and every sortie comes at a growing cost. The military's reliance on air power is unsustainable. International sanctions have choked off access to spare parts and fuel, forcing the Air Force to cannibalize old planes and ration every drop of aviation fuel. The junta is forced to innovate, shifting to cheaper, more sustainable aerial tactics, including drones. These unmanned systems are easier to maintain and can be deployed with less risk, allowing the military to extend its reach even as its resources dwindle. The war has become a battle for the skies, a conventional air force versus a resistance that's weaponized commercial drones. Both sides are locked in a technological arms race, adapting rapidly to new threats and opportunities. Resistance groups, once limited to small arms, now use commercial drones to strike airbases, supply convoys, and even military headquarters. These low-cost weapons have leveled the playing field, making the airspace contested and unpredictable. Myanmar is now a global hotspot for drone warfare, where control of the air defines the fate of the civil war. The outcome of this battle will not only decide who rules Myanmar, but could also shape the future of warfare far beyond its borders. The backbone of Myanmar's air power is a formidable mix of Russian and Chinese fighter jets, forming the core of the country's aerial capabilities. These aircraft are not just tools of war, they are symbols of Myanmar's international alliances and the military's determination to maintain control from the skies. At the top of the fleet are 6 Russian Su-30s, delivered since 2022. These advanced multi-role fighters are the Air Force's crown jewels, prized for their cutting-edge avionics, long range, and ability to carry a wide array of precision-guided munitions. The Su-30s are reserved for high-value, precision strikes against key resistance targets, making them a critical asset in the junta's arsenal. Operating these jets is costly, both in terms of maintenance and training, but their presence on Myanmar's airfields is a powerful show of force. The Su-30s also serve as a visible reminder of Moscow's ongoing support, reinforcing the military's ties to Russia and its access to advanced weaponry. Yet, the real workhorses of the Myanmar Air Force are China's FTC-2000G jets. These lightweight fighters are far cheaper and easier to maintain than their Russian counterparts, making them ideal for the relentless bombing runs that have become a daily reality in Myanmar's conflict zones. Their versatility allows the Air Force to conduct frequent sorties with minimal downtime. With at least 15 FTC-2000Gs already in service, and more reportedly on order, these jets give the junta the ability to sustain near-constant air raids. Their numbers and reliability mean the Air Force can keep up the pressure on resistance forces, striking targets across the country day after day. This capability is only possible thanks to China's steady supply of aircraft, spare parts, and technical support. Beijing's willingness to keep Myanmar's fleet flying reveals its deep strategic interest in the junta's survival, ensuring the military remains a dominant force in the region. Together, this Russian-Chinese arsenal allows the Myanmar Air Force to balance high-impact strategic strikes with relentless daily pressure on resistance groups. It's a potent combination that has reshaped the conflict, giving the junta a decisive edge in the battle for control of the skies. Much of the Air Force still relies on aging Chinese Q-5s and J-7s, old, unreliable, and hard to maintain. The once promising JF-17 Thunder fleet is now grounded by structural failures, exposing the risks of foreign hardware. Even Russian Yak-130 trainers are often sidelined by sanctions and spare parts shortages. Targeted international sanctions have crippled the Air Force's ability to keep these older jets flying. This dependence on foreign parts and technicians is a major vulnerability. The high costs and logistical headaches are pushing the junta to embrace cheaper, disposable platforms, especially drones. Since 2024, the junta has rapidly shifted its aerial strategy, moving away from traditional fighter jets and helicopters to embrace a new generation of airborne technology, drones, paramotors, and gyrocopters. This transition has been driven by necessity as well as opportunity, as these platforms are not only significantly cheaper to acquire and maintain, but also far easier to deploy in the field and much less risky for pilots and operators. Unlike conventional jets, which require extensive infrastructure and training, drones and paramotors can be launched from makeshift runways or even open fields, giving the military unprecedented flexibility and reach. Gyrocopters, with their simple mechanics and ability to fly low and slow, have also become a favored tool for surveillance and light attack missions. With substantial assistance from Russia, China, and India, the military has established a dedicated drone unit, rapidly expanding its fleet of unmanned aerial vehicles. This new arsenal has transformed the way the junta wages war from the skies. The backbone of this fleet includes advanced Chinese CH-3 and CH-4 drones, as well as Russian Orlan-10Es, all capable of both surveillance and precision strikes. Kamikaze quadcopters designed for one-way missions now provide the junta with the ability to carry out targeted assassinations and sudden attacks, while surveillance drones maintain a constant watch over opposition-held areas day and night. The introduction of paramotors, essentially powered paragliders adapted for military use, marks a chilling innovation. These lightweight aircraft are now being used to drop improvised bombs on villages and resistance positions, demonstrating the junta's willingness to use any means necessary to instill fear and maintain control. Over 120 paramotor attacks have been recorded so far, resulting in the deaths of dozens of civilians and widespread destruction. These attacks highlight the regime's increasing brutality and disregard for human life. To ensure a steady supply of these weapons, the junta is ramping up domestic drone production, relying heavily on Chinese technical expertise and imported components. This local manufacturing push is designed to keep the air campaign going, even if international sanctions or supply chain disruptions threaten imports. The shift to drones, paramotors, and improvised aircraft marks not just a tactical evolution, but a new, more sustainable phase in the junta's air war, one that is likely to shape the conflict for years to come. The resistance, lacking jets, turned to commercial drones, transforming them into a people's air force. Modified quadcopters and fixed-wing drones have enabled daring attacks, from overrunning outposts to striking the capital. Groups like Federal Wings and Cloud Wings became symbols of resistance innovation. But this edge is fragile, dependent on smuggled Chinese parts, and vulnerable to rising costs and supply crackdowns. In late 2024, China began restricting drone components, driving up prices, and straining resistance resources. The junta's new signal jammers, often Chinese-made, are now downing resistance drones in growing numbers. The resistance faces a race to innovate, as its initial drone advantage rapidly erodes. The junta's air war is sustained almost entirely by Russia and China. Russia supplies advanced jets, trainers, drones, and crucial pilot training, delivering over $400 million in arms since 2021. China provides the bulk of the Air Force's workhorse jets, trainers, and transport planes, plus vital drone components. Beijing's support is strategic. It wants a stable neighbor to protect its economic interests, even as it arms both sides. Chinese-made parts fuel both the junta's and the resistance's drone fleets, a paradox that underscores China's influence. In late 2024, China sided decisively with the junta, blocking drone tech to the resistance and tipping the balance. Without Moscow and Beijing, the junta's air campaign would collapse. The resistance's early drone advantage is fading fast. Since mid-2024, the junta has launched a full-scale drone counter-offensive, closing the technology gap with foreign help. Advanced Chinese signal jammers now disrupt resistance drones, forcing operators into riskier, less effective missions. The military's own drone battalions equipped with CH-4s and kamikaze UAVs are reshaping the battlefield. Drones now hunt resistance leaders, strike at night, and target supply lines with precision. In battles for towns like Bamo, junta drones have slowed or repelled resistance advances. The drone arms race now favors the junta, whose state-backed production and tech edge are shifting the war's momentum. Facing fuel shortages, the Air Force is building new forward airbases near conflict zones to conserve resources and boost sortie rates. Bases like Pakaku allow faster, more frequent airstrikes, compensating for the Army's inability to retake ground. The junta's strategy is now one of attrition, using air power to terrorize and exhaust the resistance, not to win outright. Conscription has failed, ground forces are depleted and demoralized, airstrikes have become a substitute for infantry, with villages bombed into submission rather than retaken. The result is a stalemate. Resistance groups hold territory, while the junta rules the skies, inflicting constant punishment. Civilians remain trapped in a relentless war of attrition with no end in sight. The future of Myanmar's air war is a race for technological supremacy. The junta's growing drone advantage, backed by Russia and China, will keep it dangerous even as its ground forces weaken. Expect more drones, paramotors, and gyrocopters, cheaper sustainable tools for a regime in crisis. Chinese private military contractors could soon bring even more advanced tech to the junta's side. The resistance must innovate, developing counter-drone tech, targeting the junta's supply chains, and seeking better anti-aircraft weapons. Air superiority alone won't bring victory, but it will prolong the conflict and civilian suffering. As long as foreign support endures, Myanmar's skies will remain the deadliest front in a war with no clear end.